The Golden Year stuff returns every year and sometimes in between, so I thought we would cover it once and for all. And by that, I mostly mean the ships, because the rest of it's just camouflage. So we're going to kick things off with the Tier 5 Anshan, a very, very capable destroyer at Tier 5, and one that I honestly feel is slept on and overlooked for a few reasons. One, it's a Nevni hull sailing under the Pan-Asian flag, so you have a decent HP pool and a very good top speed. You're kinda unmaneuverable, but you do have powerful guns and you can handle yourself pretty well in most DD versus DD engagements. As long as you don't stray too close to a Mahan, be careful of a T-61 and its sonar smoke trap, and then a few other contenders at the tier, but usually I don't have any issues running this one, and you can do basically whatever you want. You can run it as a gunboat and fight other DDs, or you can use the interesting torpedo setup. If you don't install the upgrade, you can have 6 km torps. They're not deep water torps actually, and they run 75 knots. That is really, really fast for a tier 5. Of course, they're short range, but if your enemies are sailing into you, these are deadly. And if you wanted to use contact as imminent, you could basically have screamer torpedoes at tier 5s that can hit enemy destroyers. Alternatively, if you put the upgrade on, you get 8 km deep water torps. If you want to, that is an interesting choice. It's pretty cool when Wargaming does things like this to kind of give you some options. So when you see an Anshan in the wild, you don't really know what torpedoes he's running, and that's kind of fun. It adds some depth to the game. You also get smoke and a speed boost. Like mentioned, very fast destroyer, you can get around the map, and with that speed boost active, you can get past 42 knots. So as far as this collaboration goes, or whatever, the Golden Week ships, this one is the top of my list. I would name it probably top 5 destroyers at tier 5. You know, T-61's up there, Mahan's up there, and I'd have to look at the list again, but for me, the Anshan, it's up there. Next, we have the old Huanghe. Now, this has never been my favorite cruiser. It's like a cult classic, I suppose, but not my favorite. Now, this is a tier that also has a lot of decent cruiser options at the tier. If you're running premiums, you have the Derka, the Exeter, and the Grafspee. Of course, the Derka d'Aoste being the best premium cruiser at the tier, and the other heavies there being pretty fun. And then free ships, you have the Pensacola. That's right, the Pensacola. If you know how to play cruisers, Pensa is deadly. And then the Leander was always one of my favorites, although it's been, I don't know, 3-4 years ago since I ground up that line, but still, those cruisers were always very good for me. So the old Huanghe, it is a Brit cruiser as well. It was the HMS Aurora, I believe, before it was sold to the PLAN. She's going to come equipped with British 152mm guns, I suppose, or just 152s. I don't know if they're British or not. You get HE with a very similar DPM to Aoba, but keep in mind Aoba is going to set more fires and pin more armor. What I'm getting at is this is not the best gun damage output cruiser you're going to find at the tier, not by far. You do get crawling smoke, and that gives you more utility, and it's kind of interesting. You know, you don't really see crawling smoke very much in this game, so there's that. And you have the option for sonar. If you don't want to take the torp reload booster, I would always take the sonar. I think the torp reload booster is kind of like this shiny thing that looks interesting, but after playing Jinan, just take the sonar. Even 40 torps, like flying out there and still only getting, 3 to 4 torp hits a game. Skill issue? Sure, probably, but sonar is just infinitely more useful. You have decent concealment in the Huanghe and decent maneuverability. Largely, I think there are better options for the tier, but if this one interests you just because of her uniqueness, okay, that's cool. The Citadel setup is kind of interesting in that it really doesn't go under the whole front of the ship, and that could make you survivable in, the sense that most players might not know where to hit your Citadel. The highlight of the ship, though, it's this camouflage, and it will burn your opponent's retinas right out of their skulls. Moving on, we have the Northern Dragon, which I featured in her own video last year. That video I titled, "This is literally the worst ship in the entire game." Now, with that said, the quick and dirty of it is you have an Akazuki hull, but worse in many ways that we'll cover. The good thing is, Akazuki hull, you have a decent HP pool and a powerful armament. but it's also slow and unmaneuverable. Now, Dragon here is basically an AP only version of Akatsuki because you have 100mm IJN guns with 1/6 HE pin, not 1/5. So that means your HE shells only pin 17mm of armor. And for any astute World of Warship player out there, you know that that's not even enough to damage enemy destroyers. The AP is good though, which is good because you have to use it 99.9% of the time, and you can make it work. It has improved pin angles, 60 to 67.5, I think, but bear in mind, its reload was nerfed nearly 2 seconds slower than Akatsuki. It also has a slower rudder shift than Aki, less health, and deep water torpedoes, which again are going to be useless against enemy destroyers. So, in my opinion, this is likely the worst destroyer at tier 7, right up there with the Caprice. It's not to say you can't make her work, because you can. If you want a challenge, this is a good boat for you. There's nothing like dunking on red team while playing the Northern Dragon. I mean, that does feel pretty good. But don't buy this if you want a competitive ship. But, you know, if you really like the AP-centric ships, this could be for you, although I would tell you just to go play the GJ Merker because, dear Lord in heaven, that thing is fun and very freaking good. All right, we got a little mid-video edit here because I forgot about this thing, the Wukong. It is a Charles Martel variant, a premium version of it with the camouflage and a bunch of stat differences that I'm just going to put up on the screen and you can kind of look through because I really can't be bothered with this one. I would not cover this ship individually because to me it is the laziest thing I have seen wargaming do, you know? Well, I mean, we do a lot of copy pasta ships, like a lot. We shouldn't be surprised by that. But again, just kind of putting the Pan-Asian flavor on a French cruiser and then going to the combat loadout and giving it basically every consumable a cruiser can have in the game and giving you the choice to choose between them. And I know I just kind of praised the variety with the Anshan and being able to switch your torpedoes, but that seems to make more sense than just giving this ship a 20% speed boost, a deep water torpedo reload booster, a smokescreen, a sonar, a catapult fighter, a main battery reload booster, a heal, and a DFAA, and letting you choose between them. It is lazy. I wouldn't purchase this ship. It's not to say she can't perform well. It's a Charles Martel. That's a very good ship at tier 7 and it's a premium version of it. But of course, for the price and just being so lazy, I can't stress that enough that this is just bad content, F tier content. It's not good. I think with my limited knowledge of like, I don't know, games and coding and all this stuff, I think in a weekend I could implement a ship like the Wukong into the game. But anyways, now I'm just being straight up rude. It is a premium Martel, so like if you wanted a little extra credit grinder and you want to spend $70 on it and you really like the camouflage, well, hey, here you go. Now on to the other dragons. We've got the Southern and the Eastern. I wonder if the Western Dragon will ever make it into the game. Anyways, going on. Southern Eastern Dragons. From my stat checks, I don't believe either of these ships have any differing stats. And if I'm missing something somewhere, please forgive me and leave it in the comment section. But I believe these are just Miyokos with special camouflages. So buying them outright would really be a little bit silly in my eyes since they're basically just a skin. Granted, you do get the premium credit earning bonus, so there is that. If you really want a premium Miyoko, that's cool. I have to say, I love the camo on the Eastern Dragon, the blue. I think it looks very, very nice. I'm not such a big fan of the other one, but aside from the camos there, I just don't see any reason to buy these. Now, let's say you love the Miyoko. How does she stack up nowadays? It's rant time, okay? You're going to have to hear me rant on tier 6. I would say the largest jump in power levels from tier to tier in this game is from tier 6 to tier 7. So originally, remember that our tier 7s were set up in a way that they could compete with legendary tier, okay? You had Yamatos in your match with your Charles Martel. That's the way it was. So all the tier 7 cruisers, they got heals, they had pretty powerful stats. Yeah. So the difference between a tier 6 cruiser and a tier 7 cruiser, like, I think it is massive. And we could go down that tangent for a while, but let's move on ahead to the other elephant in the room, and that is epic and legendary modules. Tier 6 does not have a 4th mod slot, therefore it doesn't get access to those boosted 4th slot modifications. those can give tier 7 ships a massive, massive advantage. For another tier 7 cruiser, say you run into an Otago that has 150k damage, well, his reload is going to be 10% faster than even a normal Otago. Or you run into that Azerlane, New Jersey sweat that keeps spamming that ship and he has 150k, well, he's going to have a 10% buff to his dispersion. Not to mention the damage boosts of the legendary modules if those players are also picking up kills. So the discrepancy of power levels between tier 6 and tier 7 is why I have played less than 5 tier 6 matches probably in a year or more. Furthermore, tier 7 earns more credits than tier 6, and that was the original reason to play tier 6. It was the best credit grinding tier. Well, it's not anymore. Tier 7 has a 5% boost over tier 6. So yeah, that's a long-winded way of saying I wouldn't purchase these unless you just love the camouflages or want a challenge. There are still a ton of really cool ships at tier 6, and if you get the matchmaking to work for you, you can have fun. But typically, I get stuck in tier 7 matches, and there's also the option of getting carriers, tier 7 carriers that could focus you and kill you quite easily. So yeah, there's that. As if you needed another reason not to purchase these ships, Arpeggio also has 2 versions of the Miyoko, the Nachi and the Higiro, both of which do actually have differing stats, both of them being interesting and unique, and in Hagiru's case, actually a quite strong HE slinger at tier 6, which again, like I mentioned, you're going to need a strong ship at tier 6 to have fun probably. If you want a breakdown of those ships, I will link those right here. This is Derka signing off. I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.